Welcome to another edition of Wildcat Country. Eric Cohen and Shane Dale. I mean, this is the best probably week that we have ever had on this show. We'll get into that, but this is about as good as it gets for us. A win over ASU and the basketball team beating two ranked teams en route to a Maui Invitational championship. This is outside of postseason. It's about as good as it gets. And you can hear in my voice, Shane, from Friday's game.
And we can all understand. Not just that, but the entire week of Arizona athletics. I mean,
right.
We were talking about this, how many weeks have we had that have been better than this? I know we'll get into that, but first of all, you'll see behind me here, I finally got my little mini Territorial Cup behind me. I've refused to put that behind me in the backdrop until Arizona finally beat ASU again. And this is the third time since we've restarted this podcast that they played and they finally got the win. So I've replaced my Rob Gronkowski rookie auto with the Territorial Cup back there. But Eric got to experience me in crazy form on Friday. I did. My voice is better than yours, even though I think I did a lot more yelling.
You did.
I remember I went to a U of A game years ago with a buddy, and he never been to a U of A game before. And I guess he was telling guys afterwards, it's like Shing has like Tourette's or something when he's at a game, because it's like I go from like being quiet and reserved to just like screaming. And like the beginning of the second half, I was like yelling with a lot of other people, like run the damn ball, except I didn't say damn. But look, just real quick summary of the week. I mean, it was one of the best in Arizona athletics history, at least in recent memory. Getting the cup back is, I don't remember, this game was always a roller coaster of emotions, but I can't remember the last time I had so many emotions multiple times throughout a game. I mean, Arizona got up by double digits twice and they blew it twice. And so, I go from thinking, this is going to be a great day. It's going to be a great ride home, because you and I went to the game with a couple of other friends of yours. I went from that to, when ASU took the lead, like, okay, it's not that bad. It's not that big a deal. And finally they found a way to win. They almost blew it again when in the that third and one, fourth and one. We'll get into that too. All's well that ends well. They won the game. I don't care how they did it. I know you're a little bitter about, as stressful as it was, but they found a way to win. They're an up and coming program, a long ways to go, and they beat ASU on the way up. So all's well in the world.
You would think, for those of you who listen to our show often, that I am probably the yeller at the games and Shane is not. I purposely did not want to yell at the game for this reason. But as the game came down the stretch with so many twists and turns, I had to join in Shane's fandom. I mean, when Arizona got the two turnovers late in the fourth quarter, I was shrieking out loud, just like the majority of Arizona Stadium was. So I apologize for those of you, for everybody listening, that it's not my perfect voice, but I think as Shane said, you understand this week of all weeks, you get it. We have our buddy Jeff Dean, who is the voice of Arizona Stadium and McHale Center. He's going to join us later. He's going to shine some positivity on everything. I mean, if there's ever a week to be extra positive, this is probably it.
How many times have we had Jeff on when we desperately needed some positivity? And we actually, we don't need him for that purpose. He'll provide it anyway, I'm sure. But we don't need him to inject it, because we already have plenty.
Yeah. Oh, this is about as good as it gets. I am still on cloud 9 after what we saw this past week, as I'm sure a lot of you are. So let's get right to it. It is buy or sell, presented by our friends at Ice Shaker. To get one of these beauties that I'm holding up here on the live stream, and so is Shane, go to iceshaker.com. Use promo code Wildcat Country, capital W, capital C. Get $5 off. It's a great holiday gift. And hopefully Shane and I can give away some of these as a holiday gift as well. We will work on that and come up with something. But all right, Shane, number one, get right to it. Buy or sell. This was the best week in regular season history for the University of Arizona's athletic department.
Yeah, I put this question up on Twitter because I knew we were going to talk about it. And I was trying to get some answers because I really didn't know. And someone, several people said, since it's the best since that week in 2012 when Arizona won the New Mexico Bowl, the big comeback late in the game, the same day that they beat Florida, the men's basketball team beat Florida, that last minute flurry. I was at that Florida game. It was just an epic comeback. The atmosphere in the arena was incredible. Even for McHale, it was incredible. That was a great day.
Great day.
I think this was in terms of just a great week. I think this was even more significant because, the men's basketball team wins 3 games at the Maui Invitational. They're going to be in the top 10, maybe the top 5. And even more importantly, they look like a team that's fully reloaded, even though they lost so much talent last season. I think I underestimated Tommy Lloyd's team. And I'm very happy about that. And then winning the Territorial Cup, as agonizing a game as that was, to beat ASU for the first time in 6 years. They got 5 takeaways. They needed every single one of them in order to get it. So, yeah, I think that probably since 2014, someone noted in 2014, multiple people did on Twitter, and I forget who it was, so I apologize. But in 2014, Arizona won the Maui Invitational then, and then they won the Territorial Cup, and I believe in the same week, and Arizona won the Pac-12 South Championship. So it was a more significant game from that perspective. So I think you could say it was the most significant for the first time, the most in 8 years. The other option is, if you want to talk about the women's basketball team, just as a standalone event, getting to the Final Four and coming a basket away from winning the national championship.
But that was postseason, and because
you're talking about regular season, right?
We're talking about right, because you could say obviously the number one for just about every Arizona sports fan, University of Arizona sports fan, was the men's basketball title in '97.
Right.
The women making the run, softball, baseball, those have been awesome.
But you're talking about regular season,
regular season for both teams. Yeah. So this is up there with 2014. Yeah, I'll give you that. I mean, I have nothing more to add on that. I'll be honest, I forgot about 2014.
I had too, until someone.
I forgot about men's basketball. I mean, I remember the football game was great.
Yeah. Well, that was one of the rare times that the football team actually outshadowed the men's basketball team, because they won 10 games that year, got to the Pac-12 championship game. We don't have to talk about the rest of the season, but that was an epic win and a great week. And this week, I think, was right up there with it. And, the football season's over. The men's basketball season's just beginning. And I think we're all excited about that.
Yeah, that's for sure. It's just it was such a stress reliever at the end of the game. Like, oh my gosh, we finally won, and now we can rejoice in this amazing week that we had rooting on our teams in these 4 games. Number 2, Shane, Arizona's football season should be considered ultra successful based on the win against ASU, and then obviously winning 5 games by yourself.
Ultra successful, adding the ultra. You know what? I'll still buy it even with the ultra, because I'm tempted to say, well, maybe ultra if they get to a bowl game, but really that would have been nice. But a low-level bowl game isn't the goal. I mean, it would be nice to get back to one, and I think next season that is the minimum expectation, or at least it should be. But, we talked before the season started, and I'm sure we can go back and listen to ourselves about what would you consider a successful season. And I don't remember exactly what you said, but I think you more or less agreed with me.
4 wins and a win over ASU.
4 wins, as long as one is a win over ASU.
Yep.
They got 5 plus the win over ASU. They got a bonus win in there.
The 5th was a top 15 team on the road.
Yeah. Well, however you want to say the 5th, whatever the 5th game was. But yeah, over at UCLA, the win over North Dakota State, a win at San Diego State, which, like you pointed out to me on our trip,
7-win team.
They end up being a pretty good team. So I was wrong about that, and I was glad about that. So yeah, no, ultra successful in terms of this is a long rebuild. Jed Fish was saying that this is really year 1 for him, which I see where he's coming from with that, because it's like last year was kind of year 0. He entered with a cupboard very bare, to say the least. And he just in 1 year to go from 1 win, and that only win being over a half a Cal team, to 5 victories. And really they were in more games than that. Washington could have been a win. USC have a couple of things go differently. So they're not that far away from being middle of the Pac-12. And that's a big step after going from being by far the worst team in the conference.
Yeah, I'm going to buy this one. I would say ultra successful. I never saw a bowl game as realistic until, basically what we saw after the UCLA game when they were 4-4, Washington State at home, and then ASU, excuse me, was it 4-6? So they had a chance, to win a lesson. I just really, going into the season, 4 wins and a win over ASU. Listen, the ASU game was closer than I had hoped it would be. So that obviously put me on edge. That I was complaining behind the scenes look. I was not real happy with certain things, which we'll get into. Yep. But a win is a win. And the feeling and standing in the stadium and going to inadvertently going to the concert right by the student union after the game, where I'd never been, I'd never seen that before. It was just cool. I mean, it was cool to be a part of that. It was just a wonderful feeling to finally get this relief after 6 years of not winning this game since 2016.
My wife makes fun of me sometimes because I complain that my teams don't win by enough. And I explain, well, the reason I'm complaining is because it's not a good sign that they only beat this team by so many points. Not the case in this game. I know Arizona was better than ASU. Maybe they should have won more comfortably. I don't care. They found a way to win. They got the cup back. And while they're on their way up and it's a long climb, that's really all I care about right now. They got the win. That's all that matters.
It was great. And I think we can all agree it was a successful season. If you want to, I was going over the top with ultra successful, but I'm still going to go. There were 5 wins and a win over ASU, which, by the way, I called a year ago, Shane.
You did?
Our episode a year ago, I said, Arizona's not losing this game. I never guaranteed it. Fortunately, I didn't want to jinx it.
Are you sure? If I go back and listen, are you going?
I said all but guarantee. So because I didn't want to jinx it. You know, I didn't want everybody to be like, "You're the reason they lost."
So there was never a doubt in your mind that that U of A was going to.
Now that changed in the third quarter. That was the first time I had doubt in my mind.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like during the game, because I remember you saying
not even at halftime. Not even at halftime.
Okay,
I thought ASU outplayed it. That's that. And number 3, we'll go here. Number 3, buy or sell Jedfish's play calling against ASU, Shane.
I'll sell it. Yeah. I'm a Jedfish fan. He's converted me like he's converted a lot of fans. You know, we weren't happy about it to begin with. I said and tweeted a lot of stuff that I wish I hadn't.
Yeah.
And I think he's been a great play caller this season. He's done a heck of a job building this program, done exactly what we'd hoped that a new head coach would do. With that said, and I hesitated whether I was going to say this or not, but I'm going to say it. I think Arizona won this game in spite of Jedfish. I think that he was a little too stubborn in terms of sticking with the pass when the running game was the fact that Michael Wiley got, 12 touches in that game is criminal. He should have gotten more. They did better running the ball in the second half. They committed to the run a little bit more. I think Michael Wiley cramped up late in the game. And so they had to put Coleman and Williams in there a little bit more. But he didn't run the ball enough in the first half. And then, you have a half a yard to seal the game after that turnover. The first one that Jacob Manu forced. And you need a half a yard. Third down. I didn't mind the call on third down. DJ Williams. Was it Williams or Coleman?
I liked it. I think it was, I can't remember, but regardless, I agreed with that one.
He tripped up. And if he hadn't,
it was Williams.
Williams.
It was Williams. Yeah.
He tripped up. And if he hadn't, he would have gotten the first down.
Yeah.
Fourth down. And a lot of coaches do this and it drives me nuts. You need a half a yard. If you can't get a half yard sneaking with the ball with your quarterback, you don't deserve to win the game. Instead, you line up 5 yards behind center with a Michael Wiley guy who was cramping up, and he almost. I mean, I thought Arizona had just blown the game, and I wanted to breathe.
We all did.
I wanted to breathe the biggest sigh of relief. They just get a half a yard, and then Michael Wiley gets blown up in the backfield, and I'm just thinking, really. Are we really doing this? And then Jacob Manu makes another fantastic play. Isaiah Taylor with the interception. Look, this game was kind of the opposite of what we expected in terms of ASU had the better quarterback. They had the better receivers in this game, at least in terms of their opportunities they had. Some of the receivers made some fantastic catches, and Arizona had the best running back on the field, even though Valladay, I thought was the superior tailback going in. So it was a bizarre game. I think Jedfish hopefully will learn from this. Let's remember it's only his second year as a head coach. But I think he's got to stop being less stubborn and just kind of go more with the game plan. Like, okay, whatever I had in mind, I need to throw this out the window because it's not working, and we need to go with what's working instead.
Yeah, I mean, you have to sell. I'm with you. Everything you just said. I also want to give credit. Michael Wiley was fantastic. I would have given him the ball at every chance possible in the first half. I know he loves to throw with DeLaura and having their trio of receivers, but ASU could not stop the run. And there was no reason to go away from that. And I think as a quarterback, sometimes if our running game works, it's just not my day. It's not going to be my day.
No. And
I think Jaden DeLaura would have understood that. I thought Jedfish got a little carried away with that. Defensively, I mean, 5 turnovers, I don't think anybody would have, thought that in a million years. And when's the last time you saw a +4 turnover margin and only win the game by 3 points?
They needed every single one of them. Like, I think if you score the game like a boxing match, ASU was the better team, but Arizona made slightly more big plays, including Jacob Manu, Arizona needed both of those turnovers that he forced in the final minutes in order to win that game.
All right. So number 4, then, Shane, Arizona did not deserve to win the game on Friday. Buy or sell?
You know what? I always have to laugh at this, and I don't laugh at your question, but it just reminds me, like, a lot of times in soccer, the announcers after the game will say, did they deserve to win? Did this team deserve? And to me, it's like, yeah, they did. They scored more goals than the other team. It's simple as that. Arizona scored more points than ASU. So yes, they did. Again, like, you score like a boxing match, then maybe not, like in terms of time of possession, first downs. ASU was by far better. But the name of the game is scoring the most points, and Arizona did that. They made slightly more big plays. They got the 5 turnovers to the 1. So yeah, it was a deserving win. I'm not, in hindsight, not surprised by the way that the game played out in terms of it being as close and competitive as it was, specifically because Arizona has so many young players, many players whose I think emotions are going to get the best of them in this kind of situation. Now, ASU has a lot of new players on their team too, but a lot more experienced players than Arizona did. So in that regard, I'm not terribly shocked by the way that it went. But no, they deserve to win. They made more big plays. They got more turnovers, and that's to me, that's all there is to it.
I'm going to sell this one. Arizona did not, or I'm going to buy this one. Arizona did not deserve to win the game. I thought ASU outplayed them, 41 first downs. Arizona only ran 51 plays. I thought ASU's offense was better than anything. I mean, Arizona was great.
Some of their drives were surgical, ASU.
They were, yeah, they were. I just thought, to me, watching the game, and this is a take that, as we can all tell, that some people will not agree with, I thought ASU played better than Arizona did throughout the game. Arizona had bigger plays, obviously. ASU just carved them up. Arizona won that game because of the turnovers.
Yeah.
Simple as that. I mean, the 5 turnovers.
Well, and ironically, I think the Arizona's offense didn't do the defense any favors when they went down the field and scored so quickly. After they were on the field for like 10 minutes or more on an ASU drive, and then they have to go back on the field right away. Not because Arizona turned the ball over or punted, but because they went out and they scored so quickly. So in that regard, that it didn't really help the defense. But no, I think Arizona made more big plays, and that, to me, it's as simple as that. Maybe that's a cop-out answer, but they did just enough, and I think they were still the better team on paper, and I think that they needed every single big play, but they got enough big ones, fortunately. And Jacob Manu was after Michael Wiley was the best player in that game.
Bonus question. You and I talked about this during the game on Friday. I like Arizona-ASU. I would be in favor of it moving to a different weekend earlier in the season by yourself.
No, I like it the last week of the year. I know not all rivalries are like that. The Red River rivalry is in the middle of the year. BYU, Utah is earlier. Iowa State. But this has become a tradition. It wasn't always the last game of the season, but it's become a tradition for so long. I think keep it the way it is. I like it. Now, I thought you were going to ask about the uniforms, because I know that you were bitter that Arizona wore blue, even though it was a red out, which I agree with you. I'm not as passionate about it. But in terms of when the game should be played, I like it. To me, especially the day after Thanksgiving, that to me is where it should be. A day game after Thanksgiving, the day after Thanksgiving, like it was this year. That to me is when the Territorial Cup game should always be.
I do agree with the day game. I think Blair Willis tweeted this out, that it should be a day game every.
It's
every
in Arizona in November.
Yes.
Have it during the day. It's beautiful.
I agree. I'll give you that. The uniform, the red out with the blue uniforms, I will never understand. I'm not going to go into it here. Maybe we'll have to ask if we ever get our uniform guy on, the EMOY, Brian Prager. Yeah. If we ever get him on, we'll have to ask him about that. But
by the way, I got to experience that DJ that you've been complaining about. Mm-hmm. And I didn't think he was that bad, but I just think he needs to pick his spots a little better, if nothing else. It's like after ASU scores a touchdown, he gets on the megaphone or whatever he uses and says, Wildcat Nation, how are we feeling? I'm like, how the hell you think we're feeling? ASU just took the lead, you moron. Other than that, I didn't think it was that big a deal, but is he necessary? No. Is he that obnoxious? At times, maybe, but I don't think it's that big a deal.
All right. And there you have it. Shane gives his verdict on the DJ. I still disagree, but I'm selling the DJ. So we'll just move on from there. All right. Let's talk a little basketball. Number 5, Arizona men's basketball deserves to be ranked in the top 5, assuming they sweep this upcoming weekend against Utah and Cal. Now, as a side note, we're recording this before the rankings come out on Monday.
Right.
So they could be top 5. So buy or sell that they deserve to be top 5, following a weekend sweep. And then should they be top 5 even before that, Shane?
Okay. Yes. Kind of a 2-part question, since we're recording this on the Sunday night. I'll buy it. I think they should be top 5 based on their body of work right now. I mean, they always come back to the fact that the rankings just don't matter in basketball. They really don't, but they're fun to to watch. And we like our team to get the respect that it deserves. So yeah, I think you'd be hard pressed to find a program that has a better resume, or at least 4 programs or 5 programs that have a better resume than Arizona's right now after their wins. The Cincinnati win wasn't that impressive because Cincinnati's not that good, but San Diego State and Creighton definitely were. So you consider that I think 6 teams ahead of Arizona, or 6 or 7, I think 6 have lost this week, and Arizona's ranked 14 as we speak. A couple of them have lost, I think, multiple times. I think that Arizona should be close to top 5. And if they beat Utah and Cal, then, odds are there's a couple teams ahead of them that will have lost after that. And then that makes an even better case. It should be top 5. So top 10 for sure. Top 5, I would buy that they should probably sneak into the top 5. Yes.
Okay. So I believe right now that Arizona is a top 5 basketball team in the country based on what they have done. If you look at the eye test, North Carolina's lost twice. They were number 1. Arizona went and beat 2 teams, San Diego State and Creighton, who are legitimate top 20 teams, if not higher. How many teams have done that this year? Texas, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, realistically, it has been an incredible start. Arizona is top 5 good right now. I don't know if their talent is top 5 good in the country, but they are top 5 good right now, and they should be ranked that way. Now, if they win these 2 games, including a road game at Utah, a true road game, it's the easiest buy that we'll probably have all year, that Arizona deserves to be top 5 in the country.
And and for the second straight year, it's early, but it looks like I was wrong again, and I underestimated men's basketball again under Tommy Lloyd. I thought last year going into the season they were a borderline tournament team, and of course they were much better than that. I thought the same thing about this team because they lost so much, and I didn't know that what Tommy Lloyd had replaced Matherin and Koloko and Terry and Kyer with was adequate, and it looks like it's more than adequate. And it looks like, if nothing else, they might be a more well-rounded team this year in terms of the outside shooting, the inside game. Umar Ballo looks outstanding. Tubelis looks like he's taken a step forward. Kirk Risa as well. So again, it's early. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but the early return suggests that Arizona is a lot better once again than I thought, and a lot of people thought they were going to be.
All right. With that said, Shane, number 6, let's temper our expectations for men's basketball going forward. Buy or sell?
I'll buy that as well, just because it's so early in the year. There's going to be a lot of twists and turns. We know that. There's going to be some rough spots. There's going to be some injuries. Hopefully they're minimal, but even with the best of luck, you're going to have some top guys who are going to miss a game or 2 here and there. So knock on wood, hopefully that's not an issue. So, but yeah, even the best teams have rough patches, so they're going to come. And I think this team needs to improve defensively overall. They're number 3 in adjusted offense per Ken Palm, but number 43 in adjusted defense. Historically, teams that are in the top 20 in both categories are successful in the NCAA tournament. They're still turning the ball over way too much. Their bench, I think, is good, but I'd like to see them do a little bit more. I'd like to see their bench contribute a little bit more going forward. So still some questions, which is not a bad thing. There's still room for improvement on this team. Temper your expectations. And especially if you're thinking ahead of the NCAA tournament already, we know how much of a crapshoot that is. You can be one of the 4 best teams in the country. A lot of times over the last 20 years, Arizona's been one of the best 4 teams in the country, but they haven't got to the Final Four for a number of reasons. So in that regard, definitely temper your expectations, but you can't complain about what you've seen so far. I think that Arizona could be in the top 10 throughout the season, but there will be rough spots along the way in terms of injuries, in terms of slumps, in terms of any number of things we can't think of right now.
All right, I'm going to sell this one, Shane. You know what? Dare to dream right now. This team is playing as well as any team in the country. Let's have our high hopes. I understand what you're saying about the tournament, but right now, let's enjoy it. Let's not temper our expectations. And normally, I would agree with you. All right, let's calm down. The way this team has played, they've exceeded all of our expectations, and they look to be for real. So yeah, dare to dream. This year could be the year that we had hoped last season was. Hey, it's November. Why not? Coming up next, a guy that never is shy about dreaming or giving us, let's say, positive expectations or positive thoughts, because he is the best at it, and he's great with his analysis as well. It's the voice of the Wildcats, Jeff Dean, here on Wildcat Country. Scooby, we sent you an ice shaker. They are a sponsor, courtesy of our buddy Chris Gronkowski. You have it right there.
I love my ice shaker. Fun fact: when I trained with Glenn Gronkowski, everybody, when we were trained together, people thought I was the other Gronk brother. So it's kind of funny. But yes, I love my ice shaker. It is very good. I use it every day. I am a veteran to the ice shaker game, by the way.
What's up, Wildcat Country? Chris Grakowski here. Use coupon code Wildcat Country at iceshaker.com.
We are very pleased to be joined by our buddy, the voice of Arizona Stadium and McHale Center, Jeff Dean. Jeff, we have nothing to talk about tonight, so, no, we'll keep this short. In all seriousness, just your thoughts from above on what you saw Friday. Just as a fan calling the game, how nervous were you from the press box? And was there any point that you thought Arizona would not win that football game?
There were plenty of moments where I thought that we had a chance to possibly, potentially lose that game. It's always a dicey subject when you're talking about the rivalry game, specifically this game. This game is just, you look at the field and you're watching these two teams play. Arizona was the faster team, the more talented team on both sides of the football, and yet Arizona State was able to keep up with a game plan that was the most boring offense I think I've ever seen outside of watching our previous offensive coordinator here at Arizona. And really, they did a great job of scheming their way into that game. Arizona had the talent, the speed, and really the confidence to kind of blow the doors off of the Sun Devils. And so I give credit to their coaching staff for, kind of scheming their way into a close game. But really, they didn't belong anywhere near Arizona on that scoreboard, to be honest with you.
Jeff, Eric and I talked last week about what a win could do for this team in the offseason, going into the offseason. 5 wins, a win over ASU, a big upset win over UCLA. But it would be hard to really consider it a successful season if you don't finally get over the hump against the Sun Devils. What do you think this does for the program in terms of fan support, in terms of recruiting, in terms of everything else going into the offseason?
Well, I thought the win in Pasadena was going to, push the fan support, but obviously that didn't happen against Washington State. And, I still am harboring some ill feelings towards our fan base for that. But hey, you know what? It's a tough sell. I get it. So,
well, Jeff, let me just jump in because I feel like fan apathy has been kind of building for a while, and it's hard to get it back after just one game. And I think that losing to ASU all those years had something to do with that as well. So I feel like in terms of fan support, this win might have even been bigger in terms of getting it back than the UCLA game. It's just my opinion.
I agree. I wish we were playing this Saturday because I would really like to see that. I wish we had a game this Saturday to, have the fans come out and celebrate one more time after kind of having a unifying experience in winning the Territorial Cup back for the first time in several years. And, that's always, and look, the fans were great on Friday. The fans showed up. They were great on Friday. I'm just still a little bitter from 2 weeks ago. So, forgive me for still kind of carrying that around with me. But, I really think in the grand scheme of things, this win is always a monumental win for whatever school wins it, regardless of the stakes, regardless of the school records. It's just the way this rivalry is. And I know that there are other people across the country that would like to compare their rivalry to our rivalry. And I'm not really one to necessarily do that, but I also don't want to dismiss any of the other rivalries, the way that this rivalry is dismissed by a lot of people across the country. Keith Jackson, when he was here, when he did his first Territorial Cup game, he said that this is by far the most, the most violent, the most hated rivalry that he's seen in college football. And he broadcasts Alabama, Auburn almost every year. So it's always just a big win for the fans, and to be able to see the team celebrate the way they did and get to 5 wins on the season. I think a lot of us kind of put that as a benchmark for the Wildcats this year. Could they get over 5 this year? They're going to get to 5 this year. And they won some that we thought they would and lost some that we thought they would win. So I'm proud of this team. I'm very happy with the outcome, the way the season ended, obviously. And I'm really looking forward to next year already. It's going to be a great recruiting off season too. So,
yeah. And it's a great segue for my next question. Talk about guys who you're excited to see next season. The big names obviously coming back, but maybe some guys, like Jacob Manu came on late in the season, and Arizona doesn't win that game without him. Certainly, Michael Wiley is probably going to be moving on, but some of the guys who maybe came on late in the season or waiting in the wings who you're excited to see next year.
Oh my gosh, there's so many. You mentioned a couple of them there. Jacob really, just one heck of a football player as a freshman at a really difficult position to play as a freshman in that particular scheme. I mean, how about the game Isaiah Taylor had, for God's sake? I mean, that was, I have been in contact with, with members of his family throughout the season and things like that because of contact that I had made last year with a member of his family. And I just kind of kept in touch with some, several of them, his, mom, dad, auntie and all that kind of stuff. And I had sent them a text afterwards and I said, if Isaiah hits you up for money, he's lying because he's eating for free the rest of the year here in Tucson. So for sealing that victory. But
from your vantage point, Jeff, was that were you sure that was an interception?
100%, 1,000%. Yeah, there was no doubt in my mind that was an interception. Yeah, no doubt in my mind. I haven't even watched the television replay. I haven't even watched it. I don't know if I will. I mean, I may, kind of eventually circle around to it and watch it when I have some time, but I'm just kind of basking in being there live and watching it from high above the stadium there.
Jeff, one thing that I've seen on Twitter over the last couple of weeks and now since the game ended, that maybe other schools might try to poach some of Arizona's better players. Look at Dorian Singer, for example, with the NIL component saying, hey, you were the leading receiver in the regular season in the Pac-12, we might be able to pay you more money. Are you concerned about that, about players being poached from Arizona's roster this offseason?
Yeah, the transfer portal is always a concern, regardless of whether you're a terrible football team or whether you're a really good football team. The transfer portal comes for them all. So yeah, it's always a really touchy situation. I'm sure that Jed Fish and his staff have a plan. Dave Hickey and the administration there have been laying out the plan with Arizona Marketplace Edge. And the Friends of Wilbur and Wilma and all the other NIL collectives that have been set up there for Arizona. And I know that our numbers aren't anywhere near what, a Texas A&M, let's say, would be, but, that's also a football program that spent $18 million on NIL and it got them 5 wins this year. So, so what? I think that what Arizona has, and you can see it, you can feel it when you're around the football players. You can feel it when you're around the program. There's just a real sense of family there, and it's one of those words that's thrown around when you talk to players, when you hear players, in press conferences, when you hear them talk to other national broadcasts, radio and TV broadcasts, and they ask them, why Arizona? Why did you choose Arizona? And they say they always use the family word. There's always that word dropped in there, and that is so vitally important because football is such a different animal from the other collegiate sports, in my opinion, because there's so many guys on the roster, and the stakes are so high because there's so much money involved, and there's people coming for you and calling you, and knocking on your door and texting you all the time, and so it's a very different animal. And I think to have that family bond feeling is going to be so vital for Jed and the staff moving forward this offseason to swat away the flies that are going to be around.
That makes sense. No, and that's a good explanation. Now, I think we can all agree that Jed's play calling throughout the season was excellent. On Friday during the game, standing next to Shane, I wasn't as impressed. From high up, what were your thoughts on the way Jed called his offensive game plan?
There were a couple of question marks. I think, in a situation like that where you're just gashing a team by running the football because they are just completely selling out on trying to stop you in the pass. They ran nickel defense the entire time. They were often running, they would have kind of the single high with 5 under type of thing, just keep everything in front of them. So it took Arizona's best strength away from them. And what we did is we lined up, we put 5 on 4 in the trenches and we smashed them, in the trenches. And, unfortunately for Jed, he loves to throw the football. He's got a quarterback who loves to throw the football. And he's got all these high-powered recruits and transfers that love to catch the football. So you tend to want to push a little bit when you shouldn't in that situation. And he took full responsibility for the 1st and goal from the 2. He admitted that. I mean, he said in the post-game presser, he goes, that was a terrible play call. That is 100% on me. And I take full responsibility for that. So I respect that because everybody in the stadium knew that as well. So, there were times where I'm just, I'm kind of up there, I'm just pounding the desk, like run the ball. Because it was what was working so well for us, but it's okay. You got to throw the football every now and then. And it's hard to argue with 9.4 yards per play. So I'm going to take Jed's apology and admission on the 1st and goal from the 2. and just be happy with it. And glad we got that dub, and we're 5-win season, and I'm overall satisfied and happy.
And winning cures all, that's for sure. One more football question, Jeff, and we got to get into hoops because that would be that's just the biggest story. Not even chippiness. I mean, it went beyond chippiness. I mean, there are flat out brawls in this game, ejections. You have the referee with like a scorecard looking at all the ejections late in the game. Wilbur and Sparky got into it. I don't know if you saw that, but just as a fan, do you enjoy that kind of stuff, or do you wish the guys would knock it off?
I don't like to see it personally. I like to see fiery competition. I don't like to see guys taking cheap shots at one another. I don't, there's no place on a football field or anywhere for that matter. I like intensity, and it's okay to have a kerfuffle, if you're going to if the two teams are going to meet at midfield and they're going to bark and jaw at each other and stuff, and the coaches are doing the pushing, you see that all the time. But what you don't want to see is where you have a situation where a player is laying on the ground and there's 4 other players standing over him ready to stomp on him. It's unfortunate because I think Arizona was flagged for 3 retaliation penalties in that game, where the first one was never seen. And I saw the first one with my own eyes.
That's what always happens, though. Right?
Oh yeah, I mean specifically on the first, I think it was either the first or the second PAT that Arizona kicked. They bowled over the center. He's laying on his back, which is, first of all, that's a flag right there. Then the Arizona State player was standing over him and acting like he was going to step on his head. And another Arizona player came to his rescue, shoved him, and he got flagged.
Right.
And I was like, how did you miss, first of all, then bowling over the center, which you're not allowed to do, and all of a sudden now he's going to stomp on him, and you missed that as well. But it is what it is. But I don't like to see the fighting. I know the fans like it, but this isn't hockey. This isn't MMA. So
right. No, we don't want any game misconducts in the Territorial Cup game.
No, we don't.
All right, let's get to the other piece of hardware that Arizona took home this past week, and that was the Maui Invitational Championship. 3 big wins, 2 against ranked opponents. Just your overall takeaways from those 3 games.
Oh man, I mean, they got 2 wins over top 20 KenPom teams. One of them a very, very convincing win, and the other one was Arizona was in control the entire game really against Creighton until Creighton made a fantastic comeback there in the final several minutes to really get it close, to get it to within a 1-bucket game. But what they did is they showed that they can keep their tempo up, they can run their style, they can still score in the paint against 2 of the most elite defensive programs in the country. I mean, Creighton is probably one of the 5 best defensive teams in the entire country this year, and there's a lot of experts that are predicting them to make the Final Four this year. They're a really good basketball program, really good team. Kalkbrenner he's one of the best defensive players in the country individually, and Umar Ballo made him look like he wasn't even there. 14 of 17 from the field. It's really hard to say that anyone could have done any better against Kalkbrenner in the country than what Umar Ballo showed in that championship game. He was amazing. It was really nice to see Courtney Ramey out there with the team. Obviously, he had a huge game against San Diego State, right? 5 for 5 from beyond the arc. Playing good defense. I think he's a little bit better than I expected at this time, and maybe it was the motivation of getting to play finally for the first time this year, and he's going to settle down a little bit. But I hope he keeps that intensity all year long, because if he does, our backcourt is set. So it's nice to see.
Jeff, when you look at the performance that Arizona put on, this past week, which I'll be honest, I didn't see it coming. You said, the last time we had you on, I asked you what the ceiling was, and you said Final Four, why not? And I was like, oh, well, that's just Jeff being Jeff. But after watching what Arizona did in Hawaii, fans right now probably at least have a right to be really excited, correct?
Absolutely. I mean, there's always room for excitement when it comes to Arizona basketball, especially with the style of play that Tommy Lloyd employs with this team, the characters that this team has with Kerr, and and the way they kind of go about their business, and the amount of fun that they have out there with one another, playing for one another out there, and so there's a lot of things to be excited about with this team. And I'm not surprised we won the championship. I'm in Maui. I didn't expect this team to lose more than 1 game, in the non-con. It's just a really, really solid basketball team. And it was shown to me early when the questions about this team's chemistry were really coming into question in the offseason. How are they going to fit together with all these new pieces and things like that? And it's par for the course for Arizona basketball. I mean, we're blessed when we have 5 starters returning at Arizona. So we're used to it. And, Tommy's done a great job. His staff has done a great job of putting those pieces together. The guys have done a great job of gelling with one another. They spend a lot of time with one another off the court as well. They're really, really close off the court. And that's important. And it shows on the court. There's a lot of communication going on out there. They already understand, when I sit there and I'm watching the game, and I especially like to listen on defense when Arizona's on defense to hear them talking. And this is a team that likes to switch. They like to switch on their ball screens, and that's fine. That's the thing. Golden State Warriors have been the best defensive team in the NBA for a decade, switching on ball screens, every ball screen. But it only works if you communicate out there. And this team has gotten to the point already where they're not even having to communicate. They just know that their brother is going to be there to pick them up when they leave the ball screener. So, it's already beginning to happen. So the chemistry has already begun. And what we saw in Maui, I think, was just a culmination of that.
One thing that well, first of all, I want to point this out. We had you on a couple times ago, and I asked you the question, who will have more wins at the end of November, Arizona basketball or Arizona football? And you said basketball. And, and you were right, obviously 6-0 compared to 5 wins for the football team. I think they're both are higher than Shane and I at least thought we're going to be. Yep. We would have said 4 for football, maybe, and then maybe 5-1 for basketball, best case. So great job there. Just wanted to give you props for that. The one area of concern that I had while watching the basketball team was the bench. Now there's talent there. Henry Visar, a talented player, no doubt. Kylan Boswell, talented. But these guys in Hawaii, it was basically non-existent. Just your thoughts on what you expect from the development of the bench going forward.
Tommy's going to have to figure out his rotation. Obviously, Adama is going to be number 1 off the bench. Adama and Said they're going to be the number 1 and number 2 off the bench. But that's backcourt. If we get into foul trouble, if Umar or Zoo gets into foul trouble, we may have to go small a little bit more often. If Vesar isn't ready for the high level competition that we're going to start facing. Henry is a wonderful talent, and there are some people that think, and I'm not a predictor of this, especially not this early in the process. There are some people that think that he is Arizona's best NBA prospect on this team right now.
Bruce Pascoe would agree with you on that. We had him on a couple of weeks ago, and he said the same thing.
Okay, so there you go. Yeah, I mean he's one of them then that believe that, and I've heard it from others as well. When you can stand flat-footed and put your hands up in the air and reach 9'5", you're going to be a problem. That's a major, major problem for other teams. And when you watch him out there, he's not Bambi on ice. He's not out there, slipping and sliding around. He's not awkward. He's got good dexterity. He just needs to learn how to play this style of basketball. It's a very different style. And every team that has played Arizona that I've seen has been very physical with him, and he's been a retaliatory type of player, throwing high elbows and things like that. And he's gotten very emotional, and I like the emotion. Now you just need to kind of rein it in and play within the parameters of the rules of the game, and he'll be okay. So, it's again, I think the rotations are going to be the most important thing, not particularly to the players.
Certainly can't complain about the start yet, but 2 small concerns I have about the basketball team going forward is, they're number 3 in Ken Palm in adjusted offense, number 43 in adjusted defense as of this recording. Also still turning the ball over a lot. Long-term concerns for you, or you think it's the areas that they'll figure out over time?
A lot of times coaches will schedule, well, I shouldn't say a lot of times, every year, coaches in big programs schedule specific teams to test their players early. Tommy did this with Nichols, and when we got to play Southern, we actually played 2 of the teams who had the highest turnover rate in college basketball last year as far as turning other teams over. Nichols has led their conference in forced turnovers the last 2 seasons. Southern was number 2 in the country last year in forced turnovers. So those numbers are going to be skewed. I think Arizona had 46 turnovers in those 2 games. So those numbers are going to be skewed a little bit. We also played 2 exceptionally good defensive teams in Maui, in San Diego State, in Creighton, who are going to also create turnovers because they just clamp down and give you no space to breathe. So I think Arizona will have been tested through a lot of these. Obviously, they know that's their number 1 problem. They get it. And if it's one thing that I know about Tommy, he's going to continue to address that in practice. That's going to be number one thing. We got to stop turning the ball over, got to be more efficient on offense, even though I think they're the number 2 offensive efficiency team in the country right now. Yeah. I want to say. So, or number 3, maybe.
Number 3 in Ken Palm. Yeah.
Number 3. Okay. So number 3. But they're doing the right things. I think they just had some, early season teams who turned them over a lot. And that's what's skewing those numbers. I think once we get into conference play, you'll see those numbers start to even out a little bit, because we saw the same thing last year with Arizona. I mean, they were averaging 20 turnovers a game going into conference play, and then they were, I think, fifth best in the conference in last year in total turnovers. So,
Last question for you, Jeff. Help us make sense of the rest of the Pac-12. UCLA is off to sort of a shaky start. Oregon, same thing. Colorado, they had a great win, awful loss. ASU, this is in the same category. How many chances for good quality wins is Arizona going to have in the Pac-12 this season?
Oh boy, it's going to be imperative that Arizona goes undefeated at home. Can't lose any home games in this conference, because that will hurt your RPI. You cannot lose to these teams. I know that UCLA is going to be highly ranked. They're going to have a good RPI, or net rating or whatever. I still call it RPI, but they're going to have a good net.
Yeah.
But losing to any of the other 11 teams in this conference are going to hurt if you lose at home. Take care of your business on the road. Arizona's probably not going to go undefeated in conference this year. It doesn't happen in this conference. It doesn't happen in college basketball. Right. So, stay defeated at home. Try to split every road series you get. Try to get a big win here or there. Go to LA, beat UCLA. Go to Oregon, beat Oregon. If you can get those 2 wins, then you're golden. You're going to have a top 3 seed in the tournament come March.
All right, Jeff, my last question. Arizona has 2 Pac-12 games starting this week at Utah, and then against what's seemingly really, really bad Cal team.
Historically bad.
Yeah. Give us just a thought on what Arizona needs to do against Utah, because obviously I haven't watched much of the Utes. I don't know what you have seen of them. And then, should Arizona have any troubles whatsoever against this really bad Cal team?
Yeah, this is a situation where you don't want to start off the conference season going in on the road and being shaky in a really tough venue to play in Salt Lake there. The Musses, those fans are rabid regardless of how good or how bad their team is. It's a very difficult place to play. I've been there several times. It's a tough place to play. Tough place to get a win. That being said, Arizona should beat that team by 20. I mean, they're not even close to Arizona's talent, to their coaching. I mean, it's just not. It's not a competition. And then as far as Cal goes, I think, didn't they just become like the first Power 5 conference team in the history of basketball to go 0-7,
right?
Or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
I mean, so we don't have to worry about that. So basically, the bench guys are going to get a lot of time on Sunday, we expect.
Yeah. We'll get to see Jordan Maines and Grant Whiteman and all those guys come off the bench. Yeah, I'm hoping again. I'm not trying to be some ridiculous jerk here that's just like, we'll beat that team by 40.
They're pretty bad. 40, All right, bonus question, because Shane and I were debating this on the way home from Tucson on Friday. So I want to ask you, is Tommy Lloyd a top 5 coach in the country right now?
Absolutely.
If you were to put coaches if there was a coach draft, what coaches would you draft over Tommy Lloyd?
I mean, I think I would like to see his recruiting prowess for like a 5-year span of time before I put him number 1.
Okay.
I would have no qualms putting him in number 1.
So we were talking Few, Calipari, Izzo right now. And then outside of that, I was struggling to come up with one, because Jay Wright retired. He would have been on there.
Yeah.
Self is fantastic. Yeah. Yep. Billy's he does it all. He does it all.
Okay.
He finds very creative ways to do it.
Okay.
But you got to put Billy Self up there.
Tony Bennett, Scott Drew, or other names that we came up with.
Yeah. I have a different I get different input on the coaches. So I have, I don't just base things off of wins and losses and things like that.
Yeah.
If I'm looking at the best coaches in the country, certainly Scott Drew is right there, even though there's not a single person in the country that really likes him all that much. And I think I would put Sean Miller on that list. just because he has proven time and time again to be a tenacious recruiter and a really solid basketball coach. He teaches. He runs a great guard system, and there's no reason why you wouldn't put Sean Miller on that list as well. But when Sean Miller was fired, even before Sean was fired, people would ask me all the time, hey, who would you approve as the next head coach at Arizona? And I only gave one name because it's who I thought was the best up and coming coach in the entire country, and that's Tommy Lloyd. So, and again, I don't take any credit for it. Dave didn't ask me. Nobody asked me my opinion.
Well, he should have, Jeff.
Nobody asked me my opinion on that, and nor should they have. But just based on the people that I talked to, the people that I know, the information that I was getting, and things like that, to me, it was very obvious who the best choice was, and I would have no qualms putting Tommy as the best head coach in the country, just because of there are other factors in play here than just wins and losses.
And that is the truth, according to the original founder of this program, Jeff Dean. Jeff, always glad to have you on, and I am sure we will have you on again soon. Great insight as always.
Anytime, fellas. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of the season. We'll talk again soon. Thanks for being there on Friday for the T-Cup game, and glad to have that Territorial Cup back in our possession where it belongs.
If you're looking to add value to your sports cards, you've got to check out dtsportscards.com. They're an authorized dealer for PSA, which means you'll get great prices on your submissions if you go through them. And for just $2 a card, DT Sports Cards will take a close look at each card you submit and let you know whether it's worth grading. I just submitted some high-end hockey cards. They took a very close look, said they're good to go, and they all earned a PSA 10 grade, which tripled the value of each card. DT Sports Cards is located right here in Arizona. They provide quick, personalized service through email or direct messages. Find them online at dtsportscards.com and check them out on Instagram at dt_sportscards.
Always great to talk to our buddy Jeff Dean. Great analysis from him as always. Now, there was something on Twitter that came up last week when it came to Arizona men's basketball and betting. We saw Arizona have one of the dirtiest beats, two of the dirtiest beats.
Oh, yeah.
During the Maui Invitational against Cincinnati, where Cincy hit 2 threes in the final 34 seconds to cover the line. They were 9.5-point favorite. They won by 8. Mm-hmm. And then against Creighton, they were up by like 11 with a couple minutes left and won by, 2?
2.
And the line was 2.5. All right. So here's my advice for betting.
Don't.
No, I mean, I'm all for betting. So what I'd like to do in a game that is reasonably close, let's say within a 10-point game, we know Arizona likes to score. We know Arizona's going to score more often than not. Look at a number probably in the 150s or so and take the over and bet Arizona money line. And you can play what's called a same game parlay for most of these games and do it as a, you put Arizona to win money line plus the over. And that will pay better than even money. That is your secret to making money with this Arizona team.
So you're saying for the 2 games this week against Utah, at Utah, and then at home against Cal, you take Arizona money line, which means for those uninitiated, take them straight up.
Yeah.
And then take the over on both games.
That's what I would do.
If it's within like in the 150s.
Yeah, that's what I would do with Utah. Cal is tough because the money line is going to be so high. They're going to be such a big favorite because Cal's really bad, as we talked about with Jeff. So
you're not going to get much on the money line.
Yeah, but you could buy an alt line. There's waiting to buy the alternate lines. You can go in and look at any of the sports books and they'll say, if Arizona's a 20-point favorite, you can get them at 15, for example.
Okay.
So maybe you do that, and you have to pay more of, without going into more gambling terms, you don't get as good of odds, but it's a way that you don't have to suffer losing bad beats like we saw in Maui. So that's just for a normal Pac-12 game, Arizona money line straight up, and over in the 150s or higher. That's my betting advice. We'll see if this works, but it's better than just betting Arizona with the spread. We want them to score anyways. If you want them to win, this team's got to score 80 plus, right?
Yeah. Well, I think maybe the tough thing with the Cal game though is if Arizona's up big, maybe they take their foot off the gas in the second half and maybe they don't get to, although I guess it was kind of the same thing the first couple of games of the season and they still got to 100 anyway. So,
right.
Yeah.
So there you go. There you have it. Okay. Next one here, Shane. It's time for our picks, our game picks segment. This is brought to you by our friends at DT Sports Cards. We thank them for their sponsorship. I know that you, by the way, speaking of cards, got an interesting little you found something this
Oh,
weekend.
yeah. Well, it's, the Arizona Wildcats, Panini put out some like university sports cards, I think in 2016. And so I bought a box of U of A sports cards and got it. It was $15 for the card show. And so I got a Scooby Ride auto and a couple other numbered cards. But our sponsor, DT Sports Cards, they're at that card show that I mentioned. They do a great job. I submit some cards to them for grading through PSA. They recommend what cards to send in and whatnot. I sent in a bunch of these old Alex, like 2003 Alex Ovechkin cards that I got for like $5 a pop. And they all the ones that DT Sports Cards recommended I send in got a PSA 9 or better. One of them got a PSA 10. I got to show you. It's a $5 card that I bought. And it's hard to see with the glare there if you're not watching it, but it's a 2003 Alex Ovechkin card. Wow. I got a 10. The last 10 sold on eBay for $1,000. So DTSportscards.com, they do a great job and they recommend it. I bought a bunch of them at $5 a piece and all the other ones got a 9, which is still good. This one got a 10 and it was off the recommendation of DT Sports Cards that I sent it in. They sent it in on my behalf. I got it back and I can't be happier with it. So highly recommend if you want to get your cards graded through PSA, go to DTSportscards.com. They're local. They'll take a look at your cards, let you know which ones to send in, which ones you probably shouldn't send in, get the best value for your cards. Cannot recommend them enough.
All right. Now it's time for our game picks. We're going to go through all the conference championship games and quickly, but just want to note you are one game back. I am 66 and 64. You're 65 and 65. You've made an incredible rally. We finished on U of A games this year. I was 4-8 against the spread. You were 7-5. Okay. I was 7-5 straight up. You were 8-4 straight up. So you beat me when it came to predicting U of A games, but none of those, no more of those this year. Go through these quickly, Shane. Conference USA championship game. North Texas is at UTSA, who's minus 8.5. UTSA won this matchup earlier this year by 4. Who you got?
Isn't that where Grant Gunnell ended up? North Texas?
Yeah. And Seth Luttrell is the head coach, former offensive assistant under Mike Stoops.
Well, be that as it may, I'll take UTSA. They beat him handily before. They'll probably do it again.
No, they've only beat him by 4 before. I'm taking North Texas.
No, I think I'll beat him by more this time.
I'm taking North Texas. I'm going to disagree with you. Got to extend my lead before the bowl games start. The MAC championship in Detroit. Toledo is -4 against an Ohio team that has won 7 in a row, Shane.
Got to go with a hot team. Got to go with Ohio.
Same here. I think 7 in a row. I mean, we don't listen. I don't know any more of these. I don't know more about the MAC, but I don't watch that many games outside of weekday action. But hey, Ohio's hot. Let's go with them. The Sun Belt Championship. Coastal Carolina was ranked number 23. Their quarterback's been out, and they lost by 1 million to James Madison this week. They are at Troy, and Troy is -10. Who you got?
You know what? I'm going to go with Coastal Carolina to cover. I think that they're going to rally without their quarterback. Is their quarterback out again this week?
He hasn't said whether he's going to play. He had a cryptic tweet that he might play. I'm going Coastal Carolina just because of that.
Me too.
I just don't think they're 10 points worse than Troy.
Agreed.
Okay. In the AAC championship, an interesting one, Tulane has been a real surprise this year, and UCF barely got in with a crazy game against South Florida on Saturday night. Tulane's a 2.5 point favorite. They're at home. I'm taking them to cover. I think this is one of my favorite bets of the week.
Didn't UCF beat Tulane early in the year when we thought game day might be there? Yeah, I think UCF probably beats. I think UCF is going to use this game to count their lucky stars and improve and find a way to beat Tulane again.
You're going UCF. I'm going Tulane. I feel good about that. All right, Mountain West. Boise State beat Fresno State earlier in the year. The game is obviously in Boise, but Fresno State's been absolutely on fire since quarterback Jake Haener returned from injury that he suffered against USC. I like Fresno State not only to cover the 4.5, but to win the game outright.
Boise State at home. This is in Boise, you said?
Yep.
Yeah, this isn't the same Boise State team we saw back with Chris Peterson and Brian Harsin, but I think they cover at home.
So an interesting game here with North Carolina and Clemson. UNC's lost 2 in a row. Clemson shockingly lost to South Carolina to take them out of the Final Four hunt. I like UNC plus 7.5. Clemson, DJ Uiagalelei, or whatever his last name is, was dreadful.
Doesn't look good.
Yeah, he was dreadful. Like his completion percentage was like 30% the other day. Yeah. I think North Carolina keeps this one close. Clemson wins, but close.
I'm going to take Clemson to cover. I'll give you another opportunity to expand your lead on me there. I think Clemson pulls it together. It's going to be tough for them to get up with this game, but I think kind of the same thing for North Carolina after a brutal loss to NC State in overtime. So I'll go ahead and take Clemson with the points.
One of the most shocking results of the college football season, in my opinion, was Michigan dismantling Ohio State on Saturday. I just never saw it coming. We both had Ohio State. I thought the Buckeyes would win by 2 touchdowns. Instead, they lost by 3. Michigan is now a 16.5-point favorite against a Purdue team that lucked into making this game because Iowa shockingly lost to Nebraska. I mean, Michigan, I think, is just going to crush them just like they did Iowa last year in this game. Michigan back-to-back Big Ten champs. What do you think?
For some reason, I think Michigan's going to struggle more than they should. I think they win the game, but I think this is more like Michigan, Illinois, where they make the game a lot more interesting than they probably should and make the fans sweat. I think Michigan wins, but I think Purdue covers.
Another team that lost shockingly was LSU and former ASU quarterback Jaden Daniels as a big road favorite at 4-win Texas A&M ended up getting their 5th by beating LSU and pretty soundly. Georgia is now a 16.5-point favorite in the SEC championship game. I like LSU, Shane. I think LSU keeps this game within 10.
I agree. I don't think this Georgia team is quite as good as last year's. And I think the gap between Georgia and LSU is less than 16.5 points. Maybe there's even a little less pressure now for LSU, not necessarily in a good way. But I actually think it's going to be a close game. I think Georgia wins, but I don't think they cover.
All right, Big 12 championship game. TCU is a 2-point favorite against Kansas State. Now, when they played last time, Kansas State, I believe, was up 28-10 before blowing the game.
Yep.
Shane, who you got?
I keep thinking TCU is gonna falter at some point, and I guess I'm gonna go with that to the bitter end. I think K-State finds a way to probably win outright. I kind of hope not, because I really don't want to see Alabama backdoor its way into the top 4, which they still could, unfortunately. And if TCU loses, that's more of a possibility. But for some reason, I still think TCU is not top 4 worthy. I think K-State finds a way to get some payback and win.
If TCU or USC loses, who do you support more being the 4th team? Either one of those teams, Ohio State, Alabama, or Tennessee.
Gosh, I think Georgia and Michigan should be in regardless.
Yeah.
Regardless. I don't know about USC, but I think TCU's body of work suggests that even if they lose to K-State, they already beat them early in the year. So I would support TCU still getting in, but I feel like the committee might feel differently.
I would agree with you about TCU, but I still think Ohio State, they look dominant, just fell apart in the second half against Michigan. I still would give them a shot. I know the Big Ten wasn't great, but I still think the Buckeyes deserve a shot. I do think the Kansas State will beat TCU, though. We are going to agree there. I've been picking it every week. TCU's looked great. I just feel like this team is not an undefeated team.
Yeah.
And I think Kansas State, I really like their offense. Just watching them last night against Kansas, really impressed. All right. Finally, it comes down to this, Shane. Utah and USC get a rematch in Las Vegas on Friday night. USC is a 2-point favorite over Utah. Utah won the game on a 2-point conversion in October by 1 point. I like Utah to pull the upset again. And here's my rationale. Last year, Utah destroyed Oregon 2 weeks before the Pac-12 championship game. They beat them, 38-7 in Utah. Then 2 weeks later, they beat them 38-10 in the Pac-12 championship game. I don't buy the old, if you beat them once, you can't beat them twice. Nah, I'm taking Utah here to win the game by 4 to 7 points. I don't trust USC's defense.
A lot of mixed feelings about this one because I'd like a Pac-12 team to get in to the top 4, but USC's going to be out of the Pac-12 in a couple of years. Plus, I never liked them. So it's tough. Utah they beat USC at home by a point. I think USC is the best team in the conference. I think that's been made abundantly clear the last couple of weeks. And I think in a neutral field, they are better than Utah, and probably at least more than 2 points better. So I'm going to go with USC.
Well, it should be a great weekend of games, but I will tell you what, it's weird not to be previewing an Arizona football game.
It feels like it went by really fast, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah. I mean, it's like I was telling Jeff after we got done with the interview, it's like, I don't know what to do now. The last 13 weeks, we've had 12 games and it's, I've been to 8 of them. And I know it's like, wow, a single guy get my weekends back. Like what do I do now? But we have basketball conference season starts this week. At Utah and Cal, the women's team, obviously still doing great.
Yep.
Still undefeated, so still doing great. A lot of things to look forward to, but let me say this. It doesn't get much better than what we saw last week with the Maui Invitational Championship. And finally, the Territorial Cup returns to Tucson, as you can see if you're watching on the video stream behind Shane's shoulder. So for our guest, Jeff Dean, thanks to him for joining us. For Shane Dale, I'm Eric Cohen. thanks as always for listening. And I guess this week, more than most, bear down. It's been awesome.